Welcome to my channel USA News Street. If you follow US immigration news, today's update is something you definitely don't want to miss. Because a new discussion around asylum work permits in the United States is starting to raise serious questions. And it could affect thousands of migrants waiting for permission to work. So make sure you watch this full video, because in the next few minutes I'm going to explain what is actually happening, why experts are talking about this rule change, and what it could mean for people currently waiting for their asylum work permits. And before we dive in, take 1 second to subscribe to USA News Street, because on this channel we break down the most important US immigration and government updates in simple, clear language so you never miss anything important. Now let's get into the story. Right now in the United States, thousands of asylum seekers are waiting for something extremely important: their work authorization. For many migrants, getting a work permit is the first real step toward building a stable life in America. It allows them to legally work, support their families, and move forward while their asylum case is still being reviewed. But here's where the situation gets complicated. Immigration experts and policy analysts have recently started discussing possible changes to the asylum work permit process. These discussions are happening because the U.S. immigration system is currently facing a massive backlog of asylum cases. In fact, immigration courts across the country are handling millions of pending cases. That means some asylum seekers are waiting years just to receive a final decision. Because of this backlog, policymakers are looking at different ways to manage the system more efficiently. One of the biggest questions being discussed right now is how the government should handle work permits for asylum applicants while their cases are pending. Currently, asylum seekers typically have to wait a certain period of time before they can apply for a work permit. But critics say the system is slow, confusing, and sometimes unfair for people who are simply trying to work legally while they wait. Some policy experts believe the rules should be adjusted to improve processing and reduce abuse of the asylum system. Others argue that limiting work permits could make life extremely difficult for people who are already waiting for years inside the immigration system. So you can see why this conversation is getting so much attention. For migrants waiting in the system, work authorization is not just paperwork. It's their ability to pay rent, buy food, and support their families. Now here's the key point that many people are asking right now. Could the rules actually change in 2026? At the moment, these discussions are part of broader immigration policy debates happening in Washington. That means nothing has officially changed yet, but when policymakers start reviewing rules like this, it often signals that updates or adjustments could eventually be proposed. And that's exactly why immigration attorneys are watching this situation very closely. Because if the rules surrounding asylum work permits are updated, it could impact future applicants, current asylum seekers, and even the timeline for work authorization approvals. And in the next part of this video, we're going to break down something very important. We'll look at why the asylum backlog has become so large, what immigration experts believe needs to change, and how possible rule adjustments could affect migrants currently waiting in the system. So keep watching, because the next section explains the real reason behind the immigration backlog crisis, and the explanation might surprise you. Let's continue. If you watched the first part of this video, we talked about the growing conversation around asylum work permits in the United States and why policymakers are starting to review the current system. Now in this part, we're going to break down something extremely important: why the immigration system is under so much pressure right now. And trust me, this part explains the real reason behind the delays that many migrants are experiencing. Before we continue, if you want clear updates on US immigration news, make sure you subscribe to USA News Street, because we bring you important updates in simple language that's easy to understand. Now here's the situation. The biggest challenge the U.S. immigration system is facing today is something called the immigration court backlog. Right now, immigration courts across the United States are dealing with millions of pending cases. These are cases involving asylum seekers, migrants waiting for legal decisions, and people trying to resolve their immigration status. Because there are so many cases, the system has become extremely slow. Some people are waiting 2, 3, even 5 years before their case is fully reviewed by an immigration judge. And during that waiting period, many migrants rely on work permits so they can legally work while their case is still pending. But here's where the debate begins. Some policymakers believe that easier access to work permits may encourage more migrants to file asylum claims, even when their cases may not qualify under U.S. asylum law. On the other hand, immigration advocates argue that asylum seekers who are already inside the legal process should be allowed to work legally instead of struggling financially while they wait for their court decision. So the debate really comes down to two major questions. First, how can the government reduce abuse of the asylum system? And second, How can migrants who are already waiting in the system support themselves legally? This is exactly why discussions about the asylum work permit rules have started gaining attention in Washington policy circles. Some experts believe the solution is not simply changing work permit rules, but actually improving the overall immigration court system. For example, many experts say the government may need more immigration judges, faster digital processing systems, additional court resources, better case management technology. If those improvements happen, asylum cases could move faster, which would reduce the need for migrants to wait years for decisions. And that could ultimately make the entire immigration system more efficient. Now here's the key point that many viewers are asking. If these discussions continue, what could actually change for asylum seekers in the future? Could waiting periods for work permits change? Could application rules become stricter? Or could the government introduce a completely new system for processing asylum cases? These are exactly the questions immigration experts are now debating. And in the next part of this video, we're going to look at something that could be even more important: how these possible changes could affect migrants currently living in the United States while their asylum case is still pending. So make sure you keep watching, because the next section explains what immigration attorneys are telling their clients right now about the future of asylum work permits. If you've been watching from the beginning, you already understand that the discussion around asylum work permits in the United States is becoming a very important topic right now. In the first parts of this video, we talked about the immigration backlog and why policymakers are reviewing the current system. Now in this section, we're going to focus on something many migrants are asking right now. What could these discussions actually mean for people currently waiting in the immigration system? But before we continue, if you want regular updates on U.S. immigration news, government policy changes, and important developments that could affect immigrants, make sure you subscribe to USA News Street and stay informed. Now let's break this down. When immigration lawyers look at policy discussions like this, they usually focus on one main thing: how future rule changes could affect people already inside the system. Right now, thousands of asylum applicants across the United States are waiting for two major things at the same time. First, they are waiting for their immigration court hearing. Second, they are waiting for their work authorization approval. And because immigration courts are so overloaded with cases, many people remain in this waiting period for a very long time. This is why work permits have become such an important part of the asylum process. Without legal work authorization, many migrants would struggle to survive while waiting for their case decision. But at the same time, the U.S. government is also trying to maintain a fair and controlled immigration system. Policymakers want to ensure that asylum protections are available to people who truly qualify under the law. Because of this balance, immigration policy debates often focus on finding a system that is both efficient and fair. Some experts believe that improving processing speed is the key solution. For example, if asylum interviews and court hearings could happen faster, migrants would receive decisions sooner. That would reduce the need for long waiting periods and could help simplify the work permit process as well. Other experts believe stronger screening systems could help ensure that legitimate asylum claims move through the system faster, while preventing misuse of the process. So you can see that the issue is not just about work permits alone. It's really about how the entire immigration processing system operates. And that's exactly why discussions like this often lead to broader immigration reforms over time. Now here's something very important to understand. Even though these conversations are happening right now, no official nationwide rule change has been finalized yet regarding asylum work permits. Policy discussions like this can take months, sometimes even years, before any new regulations are proposed or implemented. But when these discussions start appearing in Washington policy circles, immigration attorneys begin watching very closely. Because when the government begins reviewing immigration procedures, it can eventually lead to updates in how the system works. And that's why staying informed about these developments is extremely important for anyone following U.S. immigration policy. In the final part of this video, we're going to summarize the key points of this discussion and explain why immigration experts say the next few years could be very important for the future of asylum processing in the United States. So keep watching, because the final section will help you clearly understand what this situation means and why people across the immigration system are paying close attention. If you've stayed with us until this point, you now understand why the discussion around asylum work permits and the immigration backlog is becoming such an important issue in the United States. And in this final part, we're going to connect everything together so you clearly understand what could happen next and why immigration experts are watching this situation so closely. But first, if you want to stay updated on important U.S. immigration news and government policy discussions, don't forget to subscribe to USA News Street and turn on notifications so you never miss an important update. Now let's look at the bigger picture. Right now, the U.S. immigration system is facing two major challenges at the same time. The first challenge is the massive immigration court backlog. Millions of cases are still waiting to be reviewed, and immigration judges across the country are handling extremely heavy workloads. The second challenge is managing how migrants live and support themselves while their cases are pending. Because when asylum seekers arrive in the United States and enter the legal immigration process, their case may take several years to reach a final decision. During that time, many rely on work authorization to support themselves legally. That's why the work permit discussion is so important. If policymakers change the rules surrounding work permits, it could affect how migrants navigate the immigration system while waiting for their case decisions. However, immigration experts say something very important here. Most large immigration policy changes do not happen overnight. Usually, they begin with discussions like the ones we are seeing now, where lawmakers, policy analysts, and immigration attorneys start debating how the system could be improved. After that, proposals may be introduced, public comments may be reviewed, and eventually new policies could be considered. So right now, what we are seeing is the early stage of policy discussion. For migrants currently waiting in the system, the most important thing is staying informed and understanding how immigration procedures may evolve in the future. And that's exactly why updates like this matter. Because immigration policies affect real people, real families, and real futures. As the United States continues debating how to manage asylum processing, work authorization, and court backlogs, experts believe the next few years could be very important for the direction of immigration policy. For now, though, the key takeaway is simple. No nationwide rule change has officially taken effect yet, but the conversation is clearly happening, and immigration professionals across the country are paying close attention. And whenever important developments happen, we will continue bringing you clear updates here on USA News Street. If you found this video helpful, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and share it with anyone who follows U.S. immigration updates. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next update on USA News Street.